Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Mulson's The Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We're here with an amazing gentleman who began his entertainment career at 3 years old in Britain's You Get Paid circus clown, and also the author of over 30 books, including Millionaire Plan, Passive Hypnosis Profits, and also his new book, Shitnosis. We'll talk about that. And he's also a celebrity hypnotist, master NCP hypnosis trainer, and also presenter of the Mind Control expose documentary. We'll talk about that, and had several near-death experiences and battles various addictions and how you can overcome it. He'll show you how as well too, and just a lot of great things. And he'll put on a magic show for you live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios somewhere on the other side of the pond. He's got a new book, Hypnosis, and also talk about his amazing entertainment career and more. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Jonathan Royle. Jonathan, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
We're doing great. We're calling yourself the Magical Guru, and we'll find out why. So you've got a new book called Shitnosis. We encourage you to show that up. Yeah, that's it right there. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, and you also had Millionaire Plan, Passive Hypnosis Profits. You began a career at 3 years old in Britain's youngest paid circus clown, and also author of 30 books, celebrity hypnotherapist, and more. And before getting all that, Jonathan, tell us how I first got started.
Well, it wasn't really a matter of choice, because it's one of those things that to me, what seemed normal was odd to the outside, but it's all about perspective. I was born while my parents were traveling with Gandhi's circus here in England. So as is the way on the circus, people are encouraged to get started performing as early as possible. And consequently, by the time November 1978 came along, do some math, you can work out how old I am now. But by the time November 1978 came along, I was appearing in the ring and on stage with my dad, who was performing as Tizzy the Clown. And I therefore became Flat the Clown, at the time Britain's and Europe's, and probably at the time the world's youngest paid circus clown. But that title's definitely been taken since, that I do know. So that set the snowball rolling, as it were. To me, growing up performing 2 shows a day, 6 days a week, and moving town to different schools and stuff, was what seemed to me normal. But normal doesn't exist, does it? It's just a psychological construct, as it were. But my mum, who didn't come from a show business background, her construct of normal was that you don't go to a different school every week. So she insisted and got her way, as it were, by the time I was 6 and a bit, that we get a house somewhere, and my dad would carry on traveling with the circus, but I would only perform at weekends after school or in school holidays when the shows were nearby, so that I could apparently have the normal going to the same school all the time experience, which in one regard, I suppose, she did mean the best. Unfortunately, because I was always appearing in the national media in England, and especially when I started that normal schooling, as it were, I was featured in a paper called the Daily Mirror here in England, and they ran an article, Alex, because that's my birth name, Alex the Circus Six-It. And when that appeared, it led to the teachers, and yeah, I did say the teachers before I finished this sentence, to the teachers starting to, there's no other way of putting it, persecuting and bullying me. And looking back on it, I can only rationalize it as demonstrating their jealousy for whatever perception they had of the fact that I was earning, well, certainly for a 6 and a bit year old, bizarrely large amounts of money. And they made my life a living hell, so much so that I begged to change schools. But there wasn't another school in that village. And it took until I was nearly 8 and a bit, so, well, going on close to 2 years, before my mum was able to arrange for us to move to another town and get another house and me go to a different school, where I'm delighted to say, teachers, fantastic, no issues whatsoever. It was like, yay, yay, I've escaped it all. Unfortunately, I still kept, well, I say unfortunately, everything has a good and a bad side. I kept appearing in the media, and as I did, in fairness, didn't get any grief off the teachers. In fact, the teachers were very supportive and encouraging of the performing side of things. But many of the other students, pupils at the school, started to bully me on a regular basis. Now, some of that was to do with the performing and appearing in the media. Some of it was, it's not obvious because I keep my hair real short in the areas where it's not naturally thinning. But I do naturally have ginger hair. So, you know, that's another wonderful target for bullying. So combine that all in, and life frankly became something of a living hell. And it had a negative effect, getting this daily verbal abuse and multiple times a week physical violence at school. It had a negative impact on my self-esteem, self-confidence, self-image, and all those things. Sense of identity. Ended up, you know, not feeling worthy. The little voice saying, "Oh, you're not good enough." Although when I was on stage performing and an audience were clapping and showing their appreciation, that felt wonderful, fantastic. It was a total escape from all the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was around 12, so it was the transitional period where in England we moved from primary school to secondary school, or I think what they call high school in the States, possibly. And I'd had enough, frankly. And one day in winter time or fall, as they call it in the States, when it goes darker earlier in the day, I thought, you know what, it occurred to me, if I lay down in the middle of Queen's Park Road in Haywood, which is the busiest main road, that no one would see me because it was dark, and everything would be over incredibly quickly. So I did lay down in the road, and after what seemed like forever, but I mean, time's relative, you know. It's also a perceptional thing. You can bump into somebody you've not seen for years, be talking to them, look at your watch, and then suddenly realize what felt like 5 minutes you've been talking to them for several hours. Or conversely, you can go in for like a job appraisal where you're dead stressed, going seeing the boss, be sat there, leave the office thinking you've been in there for half an hour or longer, look at your watch and you've been in there less than 5 minutes. So time is elastic. It seemed like forever, but it was probably only 30 seconds a minute. But it got to the point where no traffic had come, and I kind of got fed up, and I thought, bloody hell, you can't even kill yourself properly. So I stood up and started making my way back to the sidewalk. And the moment I put my foot on the sidewalk, pavement for those people in England, I suddenly heard this whoop, and I felt this massive draft, and I turned my head and saw this massive articulated lorry truck, followed by cars, followed by more trucks, followed by cars. And the road was exactly how I always knew it to be, the busiest road in the town. And in that moment, I both shit myself, which is kind of the inspiration part of the title, but there's more to it as well. And in that moment, thought there's got to be a better way of dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
And in later years, I read about people who tried committing suicide by jumping out of multi-story buildings, and a surprising number of them survived. And all of them that had survived consistently say that what led them to jump out of the building was they felt that they had too many things to deal with and they just couldn't deal with it anymore. They had too many problems. But that when they jumped out of the building and they started hurling towards the ground, they realized actually they only had one problem. And that one problem was that they just jumped out of a building and were hurling towards the ground. And it just kind of reframes everything, makes you look at things differently. And that was, although I didn't jump out of a building, that was my moment of madness that turned into sort of clarity of there's got to be a different way of doing this. And it started my quest to find a solution to stop feeling the way that I did, and ideally also to stop the verbal bullying and physical bullying from taking place at school, which did over the next couple of years. I discovered books on psychology, and in particular a book by a no longer with us French psychologist called Émile Coué, who's best known for the personal self-affirmation of day by day in every way, I'm feeling better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And his book said that if you kind of said that to yourself a minimum of a dozen times, first thing in the morning when you opened your eyes, but you're not yet fully awake, which is what's called the hypnopompic state.
Mm-hmm.
And last thing at night, when you start yawning, just before, when you close your eyes, but just before you drift off to sleep, that's called the hypnagogic state. And what those fancy psychology words basically mean is it's that time of the day where the critical faculty, analytical area, executive function, call it what you will, of your brain, or as I like to think of it, like a nightclub bouncer that stops negative shit getting into your personal laptop computer, or stops it being messed around with, goes for its coffee break. So it's the time when you can actually sneak in to the personal laptop computer, your unconscious, subconscious mind, and delete negative programs, install positive mental antivirus software for the brain, and reprogram yourself to head in the right direction. So I started using the techniques in that book, and it definitely did make it easier to put up with the abuse and have more resilience, and to help increase self-worth, even though it's been attacked all the time. But obviously I was still searching for a way to stop it from happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned about a couple of other psychological techniques, one called the law of reversed effort, which in modern day neurolinguistic programming we refer to as what resists persists, or the idea that you get more of what you focus on in life. That's kind of like, one example is that, say you buy a new red car of a certain brand and you've not seen many of them, but then you've got one, you're dead happy about it because your mind's focused on the fact you've got this brand new red car and you feel really good about it. The reticular activating system of your brain starts to notice red cars, but not just red cars, that particular model of red car popping up everywhere. Have they suddenly appeared from nowhere? No, it's just that your brain wasn't focused on it before. And you get more of what you focus on in life. So if you're focused on the idea of, oh, I hope I don't get into negative situations, I hope I don't get attacked, it's actually more likely to happen because you're throwing out negative body language and what. No, that's a very simplistic explanation. And then combined with that is what I call the Yoda principle, which is, if you watch Star Wars, Yoda is approached by Luke Skywalker in his training, and Yoda famously says, do or do not, there is no try. And the reasoning behind that is that the moment you say to yourself, I'm going to try my best at this, or I'm going to try and do this, by using the word try, you're suggesting the possibility of failure. Better to say, I am going to do my best. Remove the word try, because that plants a seed of potential negativity that's more likely to grow. And also, you'll see stage hypnotists. It's something that stage hypnotists use, where they get people to put their hands together and you say, squeeze them together tightly. Imagine they're locking, gluing, welding, cementing, bolting together. Now try to separate your hands. And the reason they say try is because it implies you may not be able to, and it makes it more likely with the other suggestions they've given that they'll lock and glue together and become more difficult than normal to separate, until finally people can, but they go, wow, that's harder than normal. And then the final piece of the puzzle, these things I had linked together, and that's what really started the journey to this book, was a thing called pattern interrupts. Now, this is the way human brains work. when we experience a new thing, we make a record of it in our desktop computer, our memory banks, so that next time we encounter a similar thing, we pattern match it quickly. The computer searches and go, yes, we've encountered something like this before. This is what's likely to happen. This is what you're likely to expect. This is the best way to react. And that's how people, if somebody walks up to you and puts their hand out like that, what's the natural thing to do in most cultures? Put your hand out, shake hands. Well, a now dead but famous hypnotherapist, Milton Erickson, regularly used what he called pattern interrupts. So he would put his hand out towards his hypnotherapy client, and the hypnotherapy client would go to shake it because that's what their pattern in their mind told them as natural to do. But instead of connecting hands and shaking their hands, Milton would grab hold of their wrist instead, pull their hands towards their face, and say, as you stare at your hand coming towards your face, it's just a sign and a signal for your eyes to close down. And you start relaxing more. And this person who was expecting their hand to be shook would suddenly, like, their eyes would glaze over, and the brain would be going, what the F's happening here?
Oh, wow.
I've no pattern in my brain to match this to. This is weird. It doesn't make sense. And then he's doing all this hand towards the face and talking to them. So it causes sensory overload, disorientation, and confusion, which bypasses the critical faculty, analytical area, or executive function, call it what you will, enabling access to the personal desktop computer to reprogram it or hypnotize somebody, as some may call it. So I blended these together and I thought, you know what? I've nothing to lose. I'm going to get hit tomorrow anyway at school if this doesn't work. So I'll try it. And the next day at high school, as the bully approached me and went, as they normally did, to pin me against the wall when they'd then give me some verbal nonsense before hitting me and walking off with their entourage following and laughing. As the hand came towards me, immediately I went, why don't you effing stop wasting time and stop effing talking BS? And why don't you just hit me now then, you moron? Go on, try it, do it, try and hit me now. And that blended together all these things I just spoke about. And lo and behold, much to my surprise, I have to say at the time, suddenly this like glazed look went over the eyes. And I thought, oh,
It did work.
Is that confusion and disorientation? So I started saying it more. I went, go on, try, or why don't you? Oh, either do it or go on, try and hit me now. And it just, they got more, and I thought, this is working. And then suddenly they walked away from me, turned to their entourage and said, come on, fellas, then looked at me and went, don't effing come near me ever again. Well, I had no intention to do it.
It's like, why would you?
Yeah, no, but the key thing is they never came near me. And that was the day that I learned that words used correctly with psychology can be life-changing, not just wounding. And that's when I really took a deep dive into learning neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, positive mind program techniques, loads of different names for what is ultimately just ways of communicating with that personal desktop computer to cut any negative emotions, energies, self-blame, shame, guilt, and regret being let go of, frustration, anger, fear being let go of, to enable and empower people to fill them with a full sense of pride and self-confidence and self-image and self-esteem and self-love. Self-respect's really important, so they can feel whole, so they can have a self-identity that's positive and a little voice in the head that we all have. But too many people who, for example, talk about imposter syndrome, that little voice is going, you're not good enough. Whereas there are techniques that you can get it so that little voice says, hey, you're doing really well. Keep at it.
I was gonna ask you something as well too. I've been in some seminars as well too. They focus like, focus on this color, focus on the object and everything else. And someone also said it's also program your alpha waves, beta waves, and also the theta as well too. Try to control that. Have you studied the waves of those principle, like the alpha, beta, and the theta as well?
Well, the correct order is beta, alpha, theta, delta. And the easy way to remember it is it's BATD. So BAT is bat and D is the first letter of dung. So I just remember the order is batshit, bat dung, BATD. Okay. Beta is basically when you're fully conscious. It's that's essentially it. Alpha is the letter A. So A is for like air. And the way to remember this is like having your head in the clouds, daydreaming. Well, that's what alpha is. It's like a daydreamy state. Theta is the letter T. T is also the first letter of trance. So it is more, it's theta is effectively is what trance is, although trance as such doesn't exist in the way a lot of people say, but it is that brainwave pattern that is the one where it's easiest to reprogram the personal desktop computer. And then delta is the letter D. D is also the first letter of dreaming, as in the snowy sleep at night. Those are what the different brainwave patterns are and how to remember them. So yeah, it's something I've definitely looked into because it is interrelated with it's interrelated with stuff that's taught in hypnosis.
It's rather interesting. We'll talk about that too, and also along the lines of delta and everything else, and how these waves, how the hypnosis and everything can also overcome certain things with Jonathan Royle. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. SonicWeb Studios is the answer. SonicWeb Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition rate. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give a official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has got great reviews. And Eve 11 endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes, Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com or 40 podcast platforms, heard in 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, as well as Geo7, Radio Public, and also on BitChute, Rumble, and also YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to those channels. Also, take us with you on any mobile device. Make sure you subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok today, as well as LinkedIn. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also T-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today. Also support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you do so today. We're here with the amazing, multi-talented author and hypnotherapist, Jonathan Royle, here on the Mike Wagner Show. And you've been doing this for quite some time as well, too. And, so before we get to the book, Shitnosis as well, too, you also did Millionaire Plan, Passive Hypnosis Profits, and 30 other books. Tell us about a couple of books as well, too, and how you got started. And if there's some other books you love to talk about, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons about it. People go on Amazon and just type in Jonathan Royle, and that's Royle. They'll find them. The without a doubt, which we'll come to shortly, this is the one that I am proudest of and is more useful to people. Well, certainly in terms of widest use in their lives. However, yeah, I mean, there's other ones out there that are aimed at helping people become diploma-bearing clinical hypnotherapist, if that was something they wanted to do. There's books out there based on my experience over the years performing as a magician and mind reader with various things I've created, and we can try and experiment in a minute if you'd like.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Passive Hypnosis Profits and the Millionaire Plan. They're things that people can find on my website, magicalguru.com. They're not just a book, they're actually also video training programs as well, showing people how I was able to effectively retire and buy my own home outright for cash, no mortgages or loans or borrowing of any kind. I literally went in like the arrogant idiot I was when I was a youngster, just before I turned 30, and went, I want to buy that house, opened a briefcase, and everyone in the building kind of shit themselves and had to call security and asked for the building to be cleared while they locked up to count the money. but yeah, there are training programs on how I created multiple streams of passive income, so that essentially I became able to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning, having often earned more than many people do while they're awake. Because obviously, once you've written a book, for example, that's only one example, but once you've written a book, it's out there, and that could potentially be selling every day for the rest of your life. But one book alone might not sell enough to pay all your bills. But you end up with like a dozen books and various video programs and other stuff. And I mean, now I've got over 200 odd different video training programs out. It's actually over 50 different books now. Although to be honest, you know, most of those books are completely irrelevant to pretty much any viewer or listener, unless you're already a clinical hypnotherapist or you want to become a clinical hypnotherapist. If you are just a human being with no desire to get into it as a career, you're just a human being who perhaps got some form of habit, fear, addiction, phobia, maybe suffers from anxiety or panic attacks, depression, chronic pain, or a whole bunch of things you could think of from A through to Z, then there is only one book that's relevant out of all the ones I've released, and that is the most recent, Shitnosis, helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together. But before we come back to that, before we came on air, I took this deck of cards, and what I did is I took them out, and I was looking at a picture online. I'll look at Mike there. I'm getting an energy. I think he'll go for that card. And I took one card, I took it out, I turned it around in the deck, and I popped it back in. So I'm telling you now, there is one card the wrong way round in this deck. I'm also going to tell you something else. It is not the Ace of Spades, and it is not the King of Clubs. And the reason I tell you that is because they're two of the most commonly chosen cards. So definitely it is not either of them. I can also tell you it is not the Queen of Hearts, which is the third most commonly chosen card. So now that I've given you a clue of which three it's not, what is the first playing card that enters your head? Say it now.
7 of diamonds.
The 7 of diamonds. And we didn't set anything up in advance, did we, Mike? No, just for the sake of the viewers and listeners, because they might think, oh, for the sake of entertainment, it's been set up. Well, no, I promise you it really hasn't. We've literally just got a deck of cards here, and somewhere in here, there is definitely a card the wrong way around. But for some reason, we're having trouble finding the bloody thing. Ah, there it is. Okay. Only one card that is the wrong way. You got an entirely free choice. And yet, what do you say? The 7 of diamonds?
Yes.
Get ready to be amazed, because I predict
Oh, how do you
the
like
7
that?
of diamonds.
That was amazing.
You know what?
Wow.
Where's the settings on here? I'm going to take the blur off the background because it kind of yeah.
Oh, there we go.
It stops the edges of the cards from being fuzzy, which is relevant because I'm going to show you something a little bit odd, which is what playing cards look like at the factory before they're printed. Because I bought some because I thought I was going to try and design some playing cards of my own. And I bought some of them. And you can go on Amazon and type in blank playing cards. And sure enough, what you will get sent is blank playing cards that are blank on both sides. And then you can use them to write words on or draw your own cards or whatever. Now, I'll be honest with you, it turned out I'm not very good at drawing, so I gave up on that idea and I ordered some more blank playing cards. I'm trying to make sure that I'm in full view of the camera. And I thought of a playing card, and I thought of, funnily enough, the 7 of diamonds, which is what you thought of before. And the 7 of diamonds.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Just appeared. However, here's the weird thing. Unfortunately, it didn't have a back, so that was really not much use. So what I did is I thought of a blue geometrical design, and then suddenly one appeared and we had a nice blue but it had no face, which again was particularly not very useful. But but then they went back to being all blank. And I thought, what can we do here? And I thought, well, what we're going to do is really, really focus. And if we really, really focus, then maybe the 10 of hearts will appear. And if the 10 of hearts appear, maybe also a blue back design will have appeared. And if a blue back design was to appear, I'll try and get in line with the camera. That's why I took the blur off, so people know that I've still got the same deck of cards. Then suddenly we might have a complete, fully printed deck of cards. But obviously that was just a dream. I mean, that would be weird, wouldn't it? 1 minute they're blank, next minute they're printed. What would be even weirder is if we suddenly cut them like that, and when we did, they just suddenly became completely, utterly.
Oh my
blank.
goodness. Wow.
Again. Strange.
Oh my gosh. That is one of the best magic tricks I've seen in a while. It's so amazing. Wow.
Excuse me, sorry, I've got a little bit of a tickly throat.
Oh, that's perfectly okay. And of course, you've done some magic for quite some time. Who are some of your favorite magicians and entertainers growing up? I forgot to ask you that earlier.
Without a doubt, from an American perspective, growing up, I love watching David Copperfield's television specials, Vanishing the Statue of Liberty, Walking Through the Great Wall of China, and stuff like that. From an English perspective, some Americans may have heard of him, not so much maybe, but a great television magician before he died was a guy called Paul Daniels, who I was lucky enough to actually work with when I was very young. And then world famous, and now he wouldn't necessarily call himself a magician, but many people would. Is a guy who this year it's 50 years since he first burst onto the television screens worldwide, and that's the world famous, he would call himself world famous psychic mystifier and spoonbender Uri Geller. Find him very inspirational. I mean, for 50 years, he's had more books written about him than any magician. Oh, sorry, he's not a magician. He's not a magician. Well, he says he isn't. But let's imagine he was a magician. He's had more books written about him than any other magician, other than probably Harry Houdini. So yeah, I mean, his ability to get publicity in the media, and even to this day, he's regularly appearing in the media. Uri Geller is definitely one of those inspirations as well.
I still wonder how he managed to bend the spoons. I kind of wonder about that. How's he managed to bend the spoons?
Bear with me. I wasn't planning on doing this. That's why they were in the drawer. But as for some reason we've got onto that subject, I do keep on standby some spoons. Now, if you were here and I could hand these to you, I willingly would do. Unfortunately, I can't. The best I can do is give them a right good old solid whack, so you can tell that we've got. And in fact, you know what? I'll get rid of a couple. That leaves me with. I'll hold one in the air, so we'll call that the A. The one that's at top is A, and the one that's at the bottom is B. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to say A or B. Whichever one you name is the one I will keep hold of. The one that you do not name, I will put down, whichever it may be. So A is in the air, B is here. Which one do you want me to keep hold of?
A.
Okay, so we'll get rid of B. Again, it was a entirely free choice, yeah? So what I'd like you to do, everyone, is think of the colour orange. Now, orange is a mixture of red and yellow. So it's a really powerful, it's one of the most powerful colours, because it's got the energies of both red and yellow in there. And it's also symbolic of like the sun beaming down its energy and its heat. And that's the idea that if you just concentrate and imagine the colour orange, and you look at the screen, what Uri would do is he'd just be rubbing gently like that, and he'd rub it, and as he did, it would start to look as though it started to, you might be able to notice that starting to bend. It's actually, truly, if I bring it closer, you'll see that that is actually starting to bend more, and it truly it is starting to bend more and more and more. And here's the thing, it's actually now starting to feel a little bit plasticky, so that with one finger, just one finger, it almost looks as though it's starting to get plastically, like it's starting to kind of wiggle, like it's starting to I don't know, starting to melt. It's weird. It's sometimes Uri would hold it and just shake it and say, concentrate here, and then oh, and then bizarrely it snaps.
Whoa. All with a color orange. I like that. Oh my goodness. Woo.
It's bizarre. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, the power of the mind.
Yes, the power of the mind indeed. And also you had in the book as well, too, also overcome a number of addictions too, you know, like say with alcohol addiction, tobacco, sex, and cocaine, and just about everything like that. And maybe just a bit about how you can use the mind, you know, to get rid of these addictions. And maybe like even the toughest one, which would that be? What's the toughest addiction you would overcome?
There's no such thing as a toughest addiction. That's implying that you give labels to things. You're either addicted to something or you're not. And if you are, then it's because there's an imbalance somewhere, a lacking, a hole that feels like it needs filling. And some people eat too much to try and bury the problem. Some people drink to try and drown them out. Some people smoke to try and put a metaphorical smoke screen. Other people take drugs in whatever form to literally try and escape the feelings and such like. And yeah, when I was on my quest, before I fully managed to go through the processes that I teach in hypnosis and actually do personal self-healing, both of myself as an adult and also of the inner metaphorical inner child. Before I'd done all that, there was a period in my mid to late, well, before I was 20 anyway, when, yeah, abuse of alcohol, cocaine, gambling, a whole myriad of things, anything that would distract from those traumas and pains that I was walking around with, and all those that psychological baggage and feelings of self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, fear, anger, remorse, resentment, things that I'm sure many viewers and listeners can relate to. My escape was a bit of all of them, and I wouldn't say one was any harder than the other. You know, whereas I had numerous escapes, and it varied intensity on which one. Some people are fully focused on one. You know, they don't drink and they don't smoke, but they do take a drug of choice, whatever that may be. Or others just drink way too much but don't do any of the other. Ultimately, it comes down to there having been traumas of some kind from birth, sometime up to and including around the teenage years, puberty. When then the kind of, that's when the critical faculty analytical area starts its job. Prior to the age of kind of teenage years, there isn't really a critical faculty as such, not working in the same way. So all stuff, good, bad, or indifferent, goes into the personal desktop computer. And it can get blown out of proportion, because when it goes in, it gets stored at the emotional intensity it was when it happened. Okay. And it affects us then with the emotional intensity of as it happened at the time, rather than as if we looked at it as an adult now. And what I mean by that, the example of that is, imagine this. As an adult, if I said to you that the idea of a 3-year-old at a birthday party grabbing a balloon, thinking in that moment it's the most wonderful thing in the world, being really happy, and then suddenly a balloon gets popped and they start crying and they're traumatized by it, really upset, 5-10 minutes or whatever before they find another balloon or whatever, that experience to them, because they're not an adult, that experience to them with their young imaginations, because to them it may not just have been a red balloon, it could have been a spaceship, it could have been anything. that's just blown up. The point is, the emotional intensity to them is traumatic. It's as traumatic to that young 3-year-old mind as it would be to us as an adult. I'm 48 this year, losing a loved one, a friend, or a family member. There is a grieving thing that would ideally take place, but they're at that age, they're that young, that something else then distracts them, and they never get a chance to go through the getting over it process. So it gets kind of frozen in time as a traumatic memory that goes into that computer. They're what I refer to as mini traumas, but we have loads of them growing up, and everyone compounds the other, and they go into the personal laptop computer and mean that when the security guard does start its job, when we're about, teenage, and the critical faculty analytical area starts working, that stuff's already in there. So unless some purposeful ritualistic process, also known as therapy, whether it's done through a therapist or more preferably yourself in the privacy of your own home, is undertaken to be able to distract the doorman of the mind, to get into the control room to your personal laptop computer, to delete the negative files that have been in there, to release those frozen in time traumas so that the inner child can metaphorically be healed and you can effectively grow up properly, so that you're not just consciously an adult, you become unconsciously, subconsciously an adult as well, and become in harmony. Until that's done, there's always going to be things running that are causing you problems, and that is what can be the underlying imbalances that causes the need for drugs, addictions, or it can be the thing that causes the traumatic anchors that can cause panic attacks, anxiety, depression, phobias, and a whole bunch of other things.
You talked about the smoking as well too, being like a smoke screen, just like a cover up of problems, alcohol, just as escape, from like, like what's going on in life and everything. What about gambling? What would that like, mirror as?
It's wanting all of them. I mean, it's a bit more obvious for gambling. When people are chasing after the losses, it's about them wanting to try and regain control of the situation. It's that idea that they will be able to regain control, or hope they can regain control of the situation. And obviously that when they do win, it's such an endorphin, an adrenaline rush that feels so good. It's actually better than taking massive amounts of cocaine or heroin. The escape from the contrast from the shit of everyday life to I've won is so massively addictive that gambling's actually one of the most addictive ones, if you were going to put them on a scale, because of the extreme feelings that get associated to winning. But as with all of the things, people end up doing certain things because they feel out of control, but they do them because on some weird, often perverse, illogical level, by doing these things, it gives them a sense of being in control, even though in reality it can sometimes be making things worse.
So it's just like you put a coin in the slot machine, you won something, you think you can get more and more, or like say you bet on a soccer match, you win or something, like England wins the World Cup and everything like that. You just kind of feel you have that control. It seems to be along those lines. It's like, hey, I got it. It's like, more and more. He tried to build like a quick way of wealth.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, it is really as simple as that. There's different layers to it as well. For each individual, there'll be extra bits, because that's why we're individuals. I'm just on about the commonalities between them. And it's when you look at the commonalities, which is where it makes it possible to put together a book like Shitnosis and go, look, these things apply to everyone. Yes, there will be things here that are different, specific, personal to you, but underpinning them are things that apply to anyone with any habit, addiction, fear, or phobia or issue. And if you can chip away at those things that are the same for everyone, so that they break down, well, the things that were unique to you in terms of causing more problems to you, they've nothing to be rest upon. So they collapse as well. And as a natural consequence, when they can no longer be supported by the underlying things, the only option is for things to return as they once were, where you no longer feel that negativity, where you no longer feel dragged down, or where you no longer have that desire for that drug of choice or whatever.
That's really interesting as well, too. We'll talk more about the book Shitnosis from Jonathan Royle as well, too. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Studios, and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with author Jonathan Royle and hypnotherapist of Shitnosis after this time out. We're back with Jonathan Royle of the book Shitnosis here on the Mike Wagner Show, celebrity hypnotherapist and master hypnosis trainer and more, and just a couple of things about Shitnosis as well, too. And what's like the one more thing that you like to point about the book, and what's like the most important detail about the book that people should really get a hold
of? Yeah, great question. Well, the book, its title kind of sums it up. Shitnosis, but it's the subtitle that's perhaps more important. Helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together. So it's not as flippant as it may first sound, because, you know, people do talk about, oh, I wish this shit would be over soon, or I've had a shit day, or it's a metaphor that people use. So this is written in a way that people can relate to. And it uses the metaphor of the idea that if you've got an issue, a problem, a habit, addiction, fear, phobia, or whatever, that in some sense you are emotionally constipated. There is a blockage somewhere. And you need to use mind laxative, okay, to clear that blockage and gain access to the personal desktop computer to be able to delete the negative programs, install positive mental antivirus software for the brain, which in the book, there's loads of these things, QR codes, that you can just scan, and they'll take you directly to online interactive training videos that will talk you through step by step and demonstrate the different self-help exercises that are in the book, so that you feel you've got someone there holding your hand, helping you along doing it. So the most important thing isn't so much one technique in here, because different techniques are relevant to different people at different times. Okay. The most important thing of all is to say this: it's no good buying this book, reading it, and expecting it to be a magic wand that will change your life. It could be the magic wand that changes your life, but not by just reading it. You've actually got to put into action the techniques that are inside. And I know that sounds ridiculous, like I'm stating the obvious, but how many multi-millions of pounds of self-help books sell every year? People keep buying more and more and more. They don't need to, if they actually put into action what's in the books consistently with focus. Now, some of those books, yeah, it may be because it's written into arty-farty, winky-wanky new age, tree-hugging language, or for other people, it might be written into scientific, psychological, you know,
or like the next biggest thing, most popular, and everything like that.
Yeah, this I like to think is middle of the road. It's neither massively academic, but also it's neither is it tree-huggy. It's written the way the average person on the street would think and speak and relate to, and it calls a spade, and it just shows you what I've used on myself to overcome those things that were holding me back in life. And then more importantly, for the whole of my career, it's sharing the things that I found work best with my clients, whatever their age, whether male, female, young or old, whatever their issue be, the things are inside this book.
And certainly very important as well, too. Very helpful. And where can we find your books at and all your works at, Jonathan?
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, basically, if you just type in Jonathan Royle, that's Jonathan, Jonathan, and Royle is Royle, into Amazon or any major book retailer for anyone who doesn't want to support Jeffrey Bezos. But if you'd like to support me, I do get slightly more royalties through Amazon. But it's not an expensive book. It's a reasonably big book. But what the real value of this book is those QR codes, because there's links to hours of interactive training as well. It's 17 United States dollars, £14.70. It's to steal to be able to change your life for the better.
We will certainly check that out, and well worth it as well, too. We're here with author Jonathan Royle of Hypnosis here on the Mike Wagner Show, celebrity hypnotist, everything else, and also just a couple of things. What else can we expect from you in 2023 and beyond, Jonathan?
Well, more of the same. Although it is my personal desire and goal to get more involved in what was at one time a career in the sense of I earned money from it, and then it became a hobby as the hypnosis took over, and that is to get back into doing more magic shows, because that's a personal passion of mine. So, you know, if the year goes on, I hope to be doing more of that, because really it's not that I'm giving up on the hypnosis, it's just that in terms of putting something together for the general public to help themselves, I genuinely do not believe that I can do any better. I couldn't possibly share more. I mean, this is the result of my 47 and a bit years on this planet, of which from the age of 14, I've been helping people with hypnotherapy after becoming the youngest certified hypnotherapist in England. There's anything that I found to be shit, I've not included in the book. The things I found to work have been included. So I can't see me improving on this. So that means that I'll have a lot of free time to fill up with something else. And yeah, I enjoy doing the magic and the tricks and stuff.
We'll certainly check you out as well, too. Hopefully be on the road soon. We'll check you guys out. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Biggest, in many ways, I'm going to go back and say the name I mentioned earlier, which would be Uri Geller. Massively clever publicist, balls of steel, and an exceptional, I'm going to say, magician. He would obviously differ and say psychic phenomenon, but psychic phenomenon or magician, whichever, it's still inspirational. Both of them take a skill and talent, and yeah, he's been at the top for the past 50 years. So, you know,
and certainly amazing, and certainly amazing too. Indeed, very amazing. What's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Best piece of advice on the planet is the grass is not greener on the other side. Some of the most psychologically unbalanced people, until I work with them or they worked on themselves using techniques like those that are in this book, Hypnosis, that I've ever met, are people that from the outside you'd look at and go, they've got everything. They're multimillionaires. They've got the dream home, the dream wife, and yet they are some of the biggest sufferers of anxiety, panic, depression, imposter syndrome, and also fear, the fear that they're going to lose it all. Which leads to one final kind of thought, and that is the only person you should ever be in competition with is yourself. Each day, have a competition with the previous day's version of yourself to become, even if it's only a teeny weeny bit more tolerant or a teeny weeny bit more positive. Doesn't have to be massive, because day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better, as MLQA said.
That is a very good point. I like that as well, day by day as well. We're here with author Jonathan Royle of Hypnosis, celebrity hypnotherapist and master hypnosis trainer here on the Mike Wagner Show. Jonathan, very big thank you for your time. That was amazing as well, too. Love your magic as well, too. You're a great magician.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, yes. And just one more thing. What's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books?
Oh, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I mean, there's one portal for it all to make life easy, and that's magicalguru.co.uk. That's magicalguru.co.uk. That's got my career resume on, but there's links to my YouTube channels, my social media channels, where you can go and buy books if you so desire, or just generally where you can, there's a whole bunch of free stuff as well. There's a complete virtual interactive hypnotherapy session there that costs nothing, that if used as instructed there, could help you overcome your habits, addictions, fears and phobias without even needing to buy the book.
That's a good point. We'll certainly do so. Once again, Jonathan, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing, entertaining.
Thank you.
Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Laugh at it back.
Thank
Wish
you.
you all best. And Jonathan, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Cheers.